As the frantic call came into 911, the dispatcher sought clarity amidst the chaos. A woman was gasping for breath, her voice trembling as she explained the harrowing events that had just unfolded. She and her boyfriend had returned from a night at the casino when an unknown assailant ambushed them. In a panic, she exclaimed that her boyfriend was unharmed, but her own injuries were grave. The perpetrator had fled the scene after a failed attempt to steal their vehicle, leaving chaos in their wake. The couple's hope dwindled as the adrenaline surged through her veins, propelling her to seek help. With a rising sense of urgency, she informed the operator that she and her friend were en route to the scene, desperation clouding her thoughts. The grim reality of the situation began to unfold, with the threat of life teetering on a knife's edge. For the seasoned homicide detectives, time was of the essence. Their chances of solving a murder plummeted without a lead within the critical first 48 hours. In the heart of Midtown Tulsa, a shooting had echoed through the night, a stark reminder of the city's notorious high-crime reputation. This low-income neighborhood, rife with drug activity, had birthed yet another tragedy. The case fell into the capable hands of investigator Spicer and his crime gun unit, initially buoyed by the fact that the victim was still alive. However, as the hours dragged on, the unthinkable happened. The victim, Michael Johnson, a 42-year-old father and Tulsa native, succumbed to his injuries, leaving a void that reverberated through his family and friends. Michael was a man of simple pleasures, known for his love of landscaping and his passion for cars. Just recently, he had fulfilled a lifelong dream by acquiring a 2006 Ford Mustang. He was a devoted father, leaving behind his parents, 3 siblings, and a young son who adored him. On that fateful night, he had returned to a residence he had called home for the last few nights. It was here, on the front porch, that the deadly encounter took place. In a cruel twist of fate, Michael suffered a single gunshot wound that would seal his tragic fate. The crime scene investigators discovered a .22 caliber projectile lying beside his lifeless body, a grim testament to the violence that had erupted. The assailants had attempted to steal the victim's car, but their efforts were thwarted, forcing them to flee on foot. Among the witnesses was a young woman who had been with Michael that night. Interviewed by investigator Spicer, she recounted the night's events, opening a window into the moments leading up to the tragedy. She recalled the exhilaration of their $1,000 win at the casino before the darkness descended. As they prepared to leave, the atmosphere shifted. 2 men and a woman had surrounded their car, a prelude to the chaos that would follow. In a desperate attempt to escape, she fought off one assailant and dashed to find her friend Randall, who lived nearby. Her heart raced as the sound of gunfire shattered the night. She dropped to the ground, instinctively avoiding the deadly barrage. The attackers had sought the keys to her car, but their greed would lead to Michael's tragic demise. In the aftermath, she realized they had stolen more than just material possessions. They had taken the life of a beloved man, leaving his loved ones in despair. Michael had only his recent winnings on him, a cruel irony in the face of their planned celebration. As the investigation unfolded, the young woman was asked if she could recognize any of the assailants from photographs. The memory of their faces was etched in her mind, especially the woman clad in dark clothing, a shadow in the chaos of that night. It was suspected that they had been followed from the casino, a sinister plot unfolding beneath the surface. Michael's possession of narcotics raised the specter of a drug-related motive, hinting at a darker underbelly to the seemingly random act of violence. In the chilling silence of the night, investigators pieced together fragments of evidence, determined to uncover the truth. Despite the absence of identification, they were resolute in their mission to identify the victim and unravel the mystery surrounding his death. A call came in from the Hard Rock Casino, where the security team was scouring surveillance footage for any clues. They understood the urgency and promised to assist in piecing together the events that led to the tragic shooting. As the detectives strategized their next move, they were keenly aware of the importance of every detail. The casino's video could hold vital evidence, a glimpse into the moments before the chaos that would unravel their lives forever. With determination in their hearts, they prepared to return to the scene of the crime, intent on finding the elusive witness who had seen something but had not yet shared it. The urgency of the investigation loomed large as they sought to bring justice to Michael's memory. Every second counted as they navigated the tangled web of suspects and leads. In the depths of the night, the search for answers continued, fueled by the desire to capture the truth behind the senseless violence that had shattered lives. The casino security team revealed that they had indeed found footage that could provide insight into the events leading up to the shooting. It was a critical breakthrough that could illuminate the darkness surrounding the case. As they delved deeper into the investigation, the detectives focused on the details surrounding the porch where Michael was shot. The scene had become a haunting reminder of the fragility of life, and the pursuit of justice burned brighter than ever. As the investigation into Michael Johnson's tragic homicide unfolded, Detective Jeff Gatwood approached the homeowner with a sense of urgency. He inquired whether he could step inside to ask a few questions. The detective sought to understand whether the homeowner had been present the previous night. The homeowner's response was a firm no. It was clear that this was indeed his residence. Gatwood pressed further, asking if Michael and his girlfriend had been staying there recently. The homeowner gestured towards the back, revealing that Randall was currently in the camper. Despite his uncertainty regarding Michael's presence, he offered to check on Randall. The detective suggested that they could investigate the camper. He instructed the homeowner to inform Randall to reach out to him. Meanwhile, they might want to review any available security footage. 3 hours into the investigation, Detective Andy Knapp discovered a camera strategically positioned to capture the crime scene. The homeowner clarified that while they didn't have a Ring doorbell, they did have cameras facing every direction. Unfortunately, he was at work and would assist once he returned home. As the detectives continued their inquiries, Gatwood noticed the victim's mother nearby. He approached her gently, asking if he could sit with her during this harrowing time. Her soft demeanor was overshadowed by an impending sense of dread. When Gatwood asked if anyone had spoken to her yet, her response was a quiet no. He prepared to deliver the heartbreaking news. With a heavy heart, he explained that while they had done everything possible, her son, Michael, had succumbed to his injuries. The mother's sorrow was palpable. She expressed her devastation, and Gatwood reassured her that they were committed to solving the case. He indicated that they had gathered significant information that could prove vital. Gatwood assured her that no stone would be left unturned. He informed her that Michael's vehicle would soon be towed for examination. They were meticulously searching for evidence within the car. The mother recalled a troubling conversation from 3 weeks prior. Michael had asked her if he could register his car in her name, citing a need to get it out of his way. This revelation struck a chord with the detective, hinting at deeper troubles. Gatwood probed delicately, questioning whether Michael had been involved in any unsavory activities. The mother's response was tinged with sadness and conflict. While acknowledging her son's flaws, she professed her love for him. With tears in her eyes, she recounted their last conversation. She had implored him to get his life in order, reminding him of his faith. Yet she recognized the complexities of human nature, acknowledging that everyone falters. As she spoke of Michael's struggles, her emotions swelled. She introduced the detective to a photo of her grandchild, her pride shining through her grief. The weight of her loss was heavy, yet she found strength in the hope of justice. Gatwood, too, felt the toll of his profession. Delivering death notifications weighed heavily on his heart. Despite his rough exterior, he was a father and grandfather, a softy at heart. He understood the duality of life and death. As he returned to the precinct, a tipster reached out, their urgency evident. They shared chilling details, having learned that Michael had been shot in the back of the head. The tipster, a member of a prison gang, expressed their reluctance to share more, yet they hinted at a storm brewing within the criminal underworld. Michael had recently been involved in something dangerous, with debts hanging over his head. The tipster disclosed that a significant amount of meth had been involved. They revealed that Michael was still indebted to the supplier. The detective felt the threads of the case tightening, drawing connections to a darker motive. The tipster's caution was palpable, fearing for their own safety. They explained that although the assailant was incarcerated, they likely had influence over the streets. The implication was clear. Michael's fate was tied to unresolved business from within the prison walls. The detective listened intently as the tipster emphasized their desire to remain anonymous. Their information was too valuable to risk their safety. With a careful promise to keep their identity hidden, the threads of Michael's life began to unravel, revealing a world filled with danger and desperation. As the detectives pieced together the puzzle, they understood that this was not just a random act of violence. It was a calculated move in a deadly game of drugs and debts. The motive was becoming clearer, but the hunt for justice had only just begun. Time was of the essence. The detectives knew they had to act swiftly to prevent further bloodshed. They were determined to uncover the truth that lay hidden in the shadows of Michael's life. With each revelation, the stakes grew higher. The investigation had transformed into a race against time, with lives hanging in the balance. As they pursued leads, the detectives braced themselves for the darkness that awaited them. In the depths of this true crime saga, the echoes of Michael Johnson's life resonated, a tragic reminder of how the choices we make can lead us down treacherous paths. The detectives were resolute in their mission to bring his story to light and find those responsible for his untimely death. As the investigation intensified, the detectives remained vigilant. The complex web of relationships and rivalries began to unravel. They were prepared to confront the darkness head-on, determined to bring justice for Michael and closure for those he left behind. The tragic cost of the unfolding events would claim a life. Yet at this moment, it remained merely a theory, one that held the promise of clarity. An hour later, Randall finally stepped forward, his presence a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. Detective Jeff Gatwood, the lead homicide investigator, introduced himself, his voice steady yet laden with the weight of responsibility. He inquired about Michael Johnson, a name that held profound significance for Randall, who responded with a heartfelt declaration of their bond. They had been best friends for 3 to 4 years. As the conversation shifted back to the harrowing events of the previous night, Randall recalled the moment of terror. Snake, a name that would echo ominously in their discussion, had pounded on the door of his camper, threatening chaos with wild claims. With chilling urgency, Snake had declared intentions to commandeer a Mustang parked outside. Randall, feeling the surge of fear, opened the door, only to find himself at the mercy of a gunman. In that paralyzing moment, the barrel of the gun pressed against his head, forcing him to the ground. The thought of death loomed large in his mind. The tremor in Randall's voice betrayed his lingering fear. He acknowledged the madness of the encounter, an experience that would haunt him. Gatwood pressed for details. He sought to understand the number of assailants that had invaded Randall's space. 2 men and a woman had stormed in, Randall recalled, his voice trembling as he described the woman clad in a black hoodie, enveloped in shadows. The man who had threatened him wore all black, his face obscured by a bandana. The fear had clouded Randall's vision, leaving him unable to grasp the full picture of his attackers. When asked about the weapon, Randall struggled to recall specifics. It had a long barrel, but whether it was a rifle or handgun eluded him. The details of the second assailant were murky, fading into the background of his traumatic memory. The intruders had believed they could remain silent in his camper. Their inquiry about Mike, a name that held deep resonance, shattered the stillness. In a troubling turn, they had seized Randall's phone, sending a message that would draw Michael into their web of chaos. The text, a seemingly innocuous warning, hinted at trouble. Randall recounted the urgency of the moment as the message flashed across the screen, claiming someone was tampering with Michael's car. In the silence that followed, Randall could hear the cacophony outside the trailer. The screams reverberated in his mind, a terrifying soundtrack to his fear. He remained frozen, enveloped in shock, terrified for his life. When questioned about the motive behind the assault, Randall's voice lowered. The assailants hinted at a connection to money, a debt that Michael allegedly owed. The mention of drugs surfaced, a shadowy world that intertwined with their lives. Randall revealed that the intruders claimed the drugs were theirs, asserting that Michael owed them. The murky depths of betrayal and obligation grew clearer. Michael had been fronting drugs, leaving him ensnared in a dangerous web. When prompted about the identity of the individuals demanding payment, Randall disclosed a name that would echo through the investigation. Richard Dieter, a figure shrouded in notoriety, had been linked to Michael's precarious situation. Dieter's threats loomed large over Michael, casting a long shadow of doubt. Randall recalled how Michael had confided in him, expressing disbelief that anyone would take his story of being robbed seriously. The weight of worry had settled heavily on Michael's shoulders. In a decisive moment, Gatwood reached out, revealing another layer of the investigation. He sought Richard Dieter through the Department of Corrections, unearthing the reality of Dieter's incarceration. Currently serving a 12-year sentence for drug trafficking and firearms possession, Dieter's connection to the streets and his criminal network became clearer. The pieces of this dark puzzle began to align. A contact relayed crucial information, a warning that echoed through the air. The murmurings of prison politics hinted at orders that had come from behind bars, an ominous directive to reclaim what was owed. Gatwood understood the gravity of the situation. The victim had indeed been robbed, yet the specter of unpaid debts hovered ominously. The power dynamics of prison gangs had reached out, ensnaring Michael in a deadly game. Ricky Dieter's affiliations with the Aryan Brotherhood cast a long shadow. The gang's reach extended to the streets, their influence palpable. It was a chilling thought that they might have sent their enforcers to collect, crossing the line from intimidation to violence. The investigation took a dark turn. The mission had escalated, with whispers of robbery and murder intertwining. The chaos of that night had spiraled out of control, the stakes dramatically heightened. With the dawn of a new day, Gatwood received critical video footage from neighbors and a homeowner named Jason. The crime scene was finally being pieced together, the victim's house now standing as a silent witness to the horrors that had unfolded. As the porch light illuminated the scene, chaos erupted at approximately 10:15 p.m. Suspects moved stealthily toward the side of the house, their intentions unclear but menacing. It appeared they were heading back to where Randall had been, their silhouettes merging with the night as they made their way toward the parking lot. A sinister possibility loomed. Could Michael have been lured here? In a frantic rush, Michael's girlfriend sprinted to the back of the house, her fear palpable. Meanwhile, Michael dashed beneath the porch, pursued by the assailants, gunshots echoing in the air as they fled the scene. Detectives pieced together the direction of the suspects' escape, noting they had approached from the north. Perhaps a getaway vehicle awaited them, hidden in the shadows. A detective's keen eye spotted what seemed to be a security camera facing north. However, upon inquiry, they discovered it was nothing more than a replica, a cruel mockery of their search for evidence. Desperation set in as detectives scoured the neighborhood for over 6 hours, hoping for a glimpse of the truth. They had located a camera on the sidewalk, but it yielded no leads, leaving them empty-handed. Returning to the scene for a second day, the detectives were met with frustration as their hunt for video surveillance continued to yield disappointing results. The weight of the investigation pressed down on them as they sensed the community's fear. People knew the players involved but were too afraid to speak, fearing they might become targets themselves. Yet, the detectives vowed not to relent, their determination strong in the face of adversity. Michael Johnson, a 42-year-old victim, had been sought by 3 suspects intent on stealing his prized Ford Mustang. Rumors swirled that Michael had debts tied to a certain inmate named Rick Beater. Surveillance footage captured the chilling moments of the murder, yet the images of the suspects remained frustratingly unclear. The following morning, a call came in, a tip about a man who might hold crucial information about the case. The detective sought a face-to-face meeting, hoping the man could share more than mere whispers of gossip. As he approached, he noticed the man's anxiety, his hands trembling with fear. In a tense exchange, the man's panic was evident as he shifted nervously. Questions about rumors filled the air, revealing both his unease and the gravity of the situation he found himself in. The detective's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the man's anxiety. Encouraging him to speak, he urged for clarity on the murder, wanting the truth to pierce through the fog of fear. As the man revealed details, he mentioned 2 males and a female involved in the crime. Among them was a figure named AJ, identified as the girlfriend of one of the suspects, while the identity of the third remained shrouded in mystery. The conversation turned to the debts that had led to this tragic confrontation. The man spoke of money owed to Rick Beater, a dangerous figure whose influence loomed large over the unfolding events. Questions arose about the expectations surrounding the Mustang. Had they anticipated Michael would willingly surrender the title, or was there a more sinister motive at play? The man's insight suggested that Rick was orchestrating the entire affair, with the suspects acting as his pawns. Their debts to him compounded the danger they faced should they fail to collect. In a moment of reflection, the man lamented Michael's untimely death, emphasizing that he had left behind a young son. The weight of the tragedy hung heavy in the air, a sobering reminder of the stakes involved. The detective sensed the breakthrough, urging the man to stay calm. The information was critical and for once felt tangible and real amidst the chaos of rumors. As the discussion progressed, they unearthed details about Carl A.J. Couch Jr., a suspect with a history of violence. His past crimes painted a picture of a man capable of such brutality. With a clearer understanding of their suspects, the detectives turned their attention to identifying the female accomplice and the elusive third individual. Connections began to emerge, revealing a web of deception and danger surrounding the case. As the investigation unfolded, a probation officer reached out to the homicide unit. One of her contacts, eager to talk, had crucial information to share, despite not being on probation. This contact had a peculiar relationship with her. He often sought her out, but his reluctance to speak with the detective stemmed from a bitter resentment, as one of them had sent him to prison. With a pointed clarity, he articulated his reasoning. It was not a mere whim, but rather a direct consequence of his past incarceration. Just 2 hours later, this man willingly appeared at the homicide office. Detective Gatwood expressed gratitude for his presence, urging him to divulge everything he knew. They were specifically searching for AJ Couch, and he confirmed that the contact had indeed reached out. The man described his attempts to connect with AJ's emotions. He emphasized the urgency of locating AJ's whereabouts, recalling how he was preoccupied with concerns for his family's safety during the tense moments. Later that evening, AJ Couch and 2 women appeared at his hotel. Upon approach, AJ was in the driver's seat accompanied by one of the women, while the other exerted pressure, cornering him with questions about their past connection. An air of dread enveloped him as he recounted the scene. He remained in the corner, fear gripping him, as the situation escalated towards a deadly confrontation. It was at Oliver's location where the violence erupted. When Michael Johnson arrived, AJ and his girlfriend charged towards him, demanding to know his whereabouts. Confusion and fear washed over Michael as he faced their aggressive approach. The door swung open violently. AJ seized Michael and propelled him towards the front door, where the unthinkable happened. A shot rang out, punctuating the night with horror. In that shocking moment, Michael felt the bullet pierce his heart. He barely managed to escape, sprinting back to the motel, desperate to evade further violence. Once at the motel, panic set in. He implored the staff for assistance, insisting that the situation was dire and he had narrowly escaped a deadly encounter. His urgency resonated with the detectives. They promised him they were working tirelessly to apprehend the killer, expressing profound appreciation for his cooperation and insight. Despite his involvement in the chaotic events, Gatwood believed the man was a vital witness. However, doubts lingered about his potential complicity in the crime, especially concerning an attempted robbery. With a focus on AJ as the primary suspect, plans were set in motion to locate both him and his girlfriend. The detectives understood that her cooperation could influence the course of the investigation dramatically. Hours later, the warrant unit successfully tracked down AJ Couch. The detectives were prepared to confront him, knowing the stakes had never been higher. As they entered the interview room, Detective Gatwood introduced himself and his partner, Detective Lacey Lansdowne. They were ready to delve deep into AJ's past as they prepared for a tense exchange. AJ's criminal history was laid bare. Nearly a decade prior, he had been involved in a manslaughter incident, a prelude to the unfolding tragedy, as he seemed detached from the consequences of his actions. The detectives confronted AJ with evidence linking him to the crime scene. The implications were clear. He had been part of a larger scheme, a debt collection gone horrifically wrong. Despite his protests of innocence, AJ was cornered. The detectives underscored the gravity of the situation, warning him that this was far more serious than he could comprehend. As the tension peaked, AJ's denials fell flat. The weight of the evidence pressed down on him, signaling that the walls were closing in, and his fate hung perilously in the balance. As the tension in the room thickened, it became evident that the suspect was finally ready to talk. The detective sensed an opening, questioning the sudden willingness to engage now that he had secured legal representation. The irony was not lost on anyone present. Carl, the suspect, confirmed his desire to speak without his attorney. With a heavy heart, he recounted the betrayal that led him to this point. He revealed that Michael Johnson had been having an affair with his girlfriend. Fueled by rage, Carl confessed that a confrontation had escalated into violence. He detailed how he had retrieved his .22 caliber pistol and forced his girlfriend to take him to Michael's home. Upon arriving, they found the house empty. In a calculated move, Carl reached out to Michael's friends, urging them to call him and fabricate a story about someone breaking into his car. This bait worked. Michael returned. In a moment that would forever alter their lives, Carl shot Michael in the head, claiming it was an impulsive act. The gravity of the situation hung in the air as detectives pressed for further details. The detectives probed deeper, questioning whether anyone else had been present during the shooting. Carl admitted that another individual had been picked up earlier, someone who had confirmed Michael's infidelity and led Carl to believe he needed to eliminate the threat. His mind raced with thoughts of the other man, but in the chaos, he had not acted quickly enough. The detective challenged him, sensing the weight of his guilt. He was aware that the truth could lead him down a dangerous path. With a resigned acceptance, Carl acknowledged the consequences of his actions. He admitted to shooting Michael, fully aware that his life was now irrevocably changed. The detective pressed on, inquiring about his past. Carl revealed this was his third stint in prison, a fate he hoped would not repeat itself. Yet, the reality settled in that he would likely face a life sentence. He knew that if he implicated the prison gang leader, Rick Dieter, he would be marked for death as soon as he entered the penitentiary walls. The specter of the Aryan Brotherhood loomed large in his mind. Carl understood the stakes of snitching, knowing it could seal his fate in the brutal hierarchy of prison life. The detective's words weighed heavily on him. Carl was facing first-degree murder charges, and the reality of his situation began to sink in. The following morning, the investigation turned to a phone call made from jail. The detectives were eager to uncover the contents of AJ's call, which could hold crucial clues. AJ, the suspect's girlfriend, had placed a call from prison, revealing his dire circumstances. He conveyed a sense of resolve, stating he could endure the situation but needed her support. He urged her to maintain their fabricated story, demonstrating a calculated effort to control the narrative. The weight of his words suggested a deep manipulation, as he indicated she needed to take the fall for him. AJ's plea revealed a darker intention. He expressed love before abruptly ending the call, leaving the detectives with a sense of urgency to locate her. The detectives understood that AJ was the missing piece of the puzzle. If they could reach her, she might unravel the connections leading back to Rick Dieter, a key figure in the criminal underworld. However, time was of the essence as AJ faced the threat of incarceration herself. The urgency to find her intensified. Detective Jeff Gatwood, alongside his partner, initiated a conversation with AJ's girlfriend. They were determined to piece together the fragmented evidence surrounding Michael Johnson's tragic death. With empathy, Gatwood spoke of Michael, a flawed man but a father nonetheless. The void he left behind was palpable, especially for his 4-year-old son, who craved the presence of his father. The emotional weight of the investigation settled heavily on Gatwood's shoulders as he pressed AJ's girlfriend for details. He needed to understand her whereabouts on that fateful January night. AJ's girlfriend hesitated, recalling fragmented memories. The detective's probing questions revealed a deeper connection to the events that transpired, hinting at the chaos that had unfolded. She recalled an encounter, grappling with the moment she had held the gun. The memory of that last shot lingered, a haunting reminder of the violence that had erupted in a moment of betrayal. The atmosphere grew tense as the truth began to unravel. Just moments after climbing into the Mustang, AJ's demeanor changed drastically. He urged her to get out and run, leaving her to wonder if fear had gripped him, or if he simply didn't want to reverse the vehicle. Overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation, she feared for her life. AJ's erratic behavior made her believe he might turn the gun on her if she stayed by his side. The next day loomed ominously as she hesitated to meet with him again, her fear palpable. She knew that failing to return could lead AJ to suspect she had contacted the authorities. When they finally met, AJ's words were cryptic yet chilling. He insisted, "Everything happens," as if trying to downplay the chaos surrounding them. His directive was clear: stick to the narrative they had concocted. Curiosity gnawed at her as she wondered about the story AJ had crafted. He claimed that the individual he was supposedly involved with had forced him to reveal his location. The implications of this connection hung heavily in the air. As the investigation delved deeper, questions arose about links to the prison. Were these men still maintaining ties with their contacts behind bars? The inquiry felt daunting, yet the detective pressed on, urging honesty about Richard Dieter's recent activities. Dieter, a puppet master in the shadows, manipulated those who owed him. His influence extended like a shock collar around their necks, tightening with every debt unpaid. The detective's inquiry revealed a web of connections that could lead to justice. The witness's resolve was tested, yet he affirmed his willingness to testify if called upon. Gratitude filled the room as investigators recognized the importance of his honesty. The struggle against the long reach of criminal influence weighed heavily on the case. Reflecting on the interrogation, one detective noted how well the witness had performed. She had filled in crucial gaps in the narrative, establishing herself as a reliable source. Confidence surged within the team as they prepared to confront the mastermind behind the turmoil. The case against Richard Dieter grew stronger. A year had passed since Michael Johnson's tragic death at the hands of violence. Dieter faced federal charges in a conspiracy drug case, yet the specter of murder loomed large. In the indictment, Michael was mentioned as a victim, a young man who had fallen into Dieter's grasp due to his debts. The detective's next move was to engage with the district attorney, seeking pathways to hold Dieter accountable for the loss of life. The detective believed that charging Dieter as an accessory to murder was warranted. Michael's tragic fate was a direct consequence of Dieter's influence, sending his henchmen into the night with deadly intent. Though Dieter may not have pulled the trigger himself, his hands were not clean. Responsibility lay heavy on him, and justice demanded accountability for Michael's untimely demise. A grieving mother expressed the profound loss of her only son. She recalled the struggles he faced, acknowledging that while he had his demons, he was still her child. The pain of outliving one's offspring cut deeply, and she reminisced about the time when he fell in with the wrong crowd, altering the course of his life forever. When Michael was sober, he radiated a different energy, yet the shadows of addiction loomed large, leading him back into turmoil. Each relapse brought forth the haunting words, "Oh no, the demons are back." As a mother, she would have sacrificed anything for his well-being. Emotions surged within her as she spoke, the weight of grief evident. Their family continued to miss him, and she would surrender anything to hold her son once more.